My great-grandson is 19 years old. Good kid, quiet, like me. Works summers, saves his money, doesn't complain about much. And the other night at dinner, he asked me what I thought about what was happening with Iran, whether I thought it would turn into something. I looked at him across the table, this boy, this 19-year-old boy, and I didn't say a word. I told him I'd think on it. Then I came out here, and I've been sitting with it ever since. I'll tell you what I think. But first I have to tell you something else. There was a kid in my unit named Pruitt, from a town outside Savannah I'd never heard of, and probably still couldn't find on a map. He was 19 years old when we hit the Philippines. Luzon, January of '45. The mud out there wasn't like anything I'd seen before. You'd take a step and the ground would try to keep your boot. Men were getting sick, jungle rot, fever, things I didn't know the names of. We were moving inland from the coast, and the heat was a living thing pressing down on you from all sides. You couldn't think straight in that heat. You just moved and tried not to fall, and kept moving. Pruitt got a letter from home, somewhere in those first weeks. Said his little brother had enlisted, 18 years old, signed up and was shipping out for training. And I watched Pruitt carry that letter around for 2 days, without eating much, without talking much, just holding it sometimes, looking at it. I finally asked him what was wrong, and he said, I remember exactly how he said it. He said, I just don't want him to see what I've seen. That's all. That's the whole sentence. I've thought about that sentence for going on 60 years now, because that's the thing nobody tells you when the speeches start and the flags go up and the television fills with men in suits talking about strength and resolve and national interest. They don't tell you what it costs the ones who go. Not just the ones who don't come back, God rest them, but the ones who do, the ones who come home and sit across from their families and realize that part of them is still standing in the mud, in a place their families will never see, next to men their families will never meet, watching things their families should never have to know about. Nobody who's been in one ever calls it a good war while they're in it. You understand that? The good war. That's something people say afterward, from a distance. The men in it just called it the war, because that's all it was, a thing you were inside of, trying to get out the other side of. I'm 83 years old. I have watched this country go through more wars than I can count on one hand, and not one of them started the way they told us it was going to go. Not one. They always have reasons, clean, serious reasons, threats and principles and the safety of the American people. And sometimes the reasons are even real. I'm not saying men in power are always lying. I'm saying they're almost never the ones who pay. That's what I know. That's what I learned in the mud on Luzon when I was 20 years old and Pruitt was 19, and neither of us had any business being there, except that somebody decided we did. The men who write the orders sleep fine. I know because I was awake. I'm not against this country. I want to be real clear about that. I am this country. My whole life is this country. The sheet metal plant, the Union Hall, the little church my wife and I went to for 40 years, the road out front of this house. I love it, the way you love something you've bled for, and argued with, and watched do wrong, and watched try to do better. That's a real kind of love, not the kind on bumper stickers, the real kind that knows what it's loving. And because I love it, I'm sitting here on this porch saying what I'm saying. Because I've seen what happens when the tension between countries gets handed off to the youngest people in the room. I've seen what it looks like on the other side of it. I've seen boys become men, become things they didn't ask to become. I've seen the letters that don't arrive, and the ones that do, and what both of them do to a family. And I am sitting here watching my country talk itself towards something, and the voices doing the most talking are the voices that will lose the least. And that is the thing that has always broken my heart. Pruitt made it home. I found that out years later through somebody who knew somebody. Went back to Georgia. I don't know what kind of man the war made him. I hope a decent one. I hope he and his brother sat on a porch somewhere and didn't have to say much, because some things you only talk about with people who already know. My great-grandson is 19 years old. He asked me what I thought. And what I think is this: I hope he never has to learn what I learned the way I learned it. I hope he gets to stay 19 for a while. I hope the men in the offices remember, really remember, that when they move pieces on a board, those pieces are somebody's grandson. That's what I know. That's all I've got. And I'm still waiting for it to matter.